Moyes back at Everton. He's returned to the club as their new manager, of course. I don't know if anybody's aware that he did previously manage them for a while, actually, between 2002. I nearly said 2002 there. And 2013. Took charge of more than 500 matches.
It was part of the furniture there, wasn't it? It seems quite anachronistic that he was there for that long, even what managers are like these days.
Yes, indeed, yeah. It was a good spell he had. There's no doubt about that. Some people may cynically say, well, there was no trophy. But, you know, there was certainly some achievements.
No one was thinking that at the time, though, were they? No. In terms of the job that David Moyes did, no one was thinking, right, we've got to push for a trophy now. He properly stabilised them, got them into Europe, you know, on the cusp of the Champions League. I think there was...
Cusp of an FA Cup as well.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of work that he did that was, I suppose, has allowed Everton to drift and not to get relegated, if that's not too ridiculous.
There was one season where they really badly flirted with relegation under Moyes.
Yeah.
03-04, where they came 17th. But other than that, it was brilliant. I mean, he's 6th, 5th in the league. A couple of seasons before that, he came 4th. Everton.
Was it a bit? Would you use that Theresa May term of strong and steady leadership? Or whatever she said?
It was, yeah.
It was, wasn't it? I mean, I think, again, people can cynically say, yeah, but they never kind of, you know, it wasn't Guardiola-esque style of football. They didn't.
No, but as David Moyes said at the time, Marcus, sorry to interrupt, but as he said at the time, you know, it's strong and stable leadership with me, or you can. Have Ed Miliband come and manage here at Goodison Park at Everton and see how you like chaos with Ed Miliband. He said.
Okay.
And then he said, have you seen him eat a sandwich? Everyone went, well.
Specifically a bacon sandwich.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, I mean, Everton, since Moyes, I mean, it's pretty much been a shit show.
It's been busy, hasn't it?
It has.
It's a lot been going on.
A lot of managers. I mean, some of the names as well, and such high-profile names as well. You think of the likes of Koeman, Roberto Martinez. Ancelotti, Marco Silva as well.
Roberto Martinez.
Yeah, indeed. It really has been quite the opposite of stable. Really, I mean, okay... Not every season. I mean, Sam Allardyce steadied the ship, didn't he? But another big name as well. So it has been largely negative since Moyes, which seems incredible because you're talking over 10 years ago now since he's been there. They have not got their act together at all.
I would say, you know, there's a few seasons, I think probably under Martinez, where they did okay, 7th, 8th in the league again. You know, it's only really the last 3 years it's been really bad.
Okay, I'm being a bit...
You've been a bit kind to
tabloidy
Moyes.
there, maybe, yeah.
Well, Moyes left when Moyes left, they were in 6th position in that 12-13 season.
Well, he was the chosen one for a reason. You know, everyone at the time, or a lot of people at the time, thought Everton, when he was picked by Ferguson, you thought, I can see that.
Yeah.
That was where his profile was.
It seemed to make sense, yeah.
Yeah, it did. Of course, you know, that didn't happen. But the fact is, Everton are all over the place. And as everyone will say, you don't want to have the best stadium in the Championship. You know, they've got that new stadium coming, and the last thing they want is relegation, generally speaking.
So what do we think about the appointment then?
Well, I think it's an interesting one. I think that he wanted a job before. He was prepared to go back. And it was
he
pretty
almost
much...
got it when Ancelotti got it, didn't he?
It was pretty much signed, sealed and delivered. Then Ancelotti gets sacked by Napoli.
It's pretty much Stevie wondered, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And then, Carlo came in.
Indeed, yeah.
You can't turn down Don Carlo last minute, though, can you?
You can't.
He turns up in the Wild West, pushes the saloon doors open, the cigar on.
I'll have that drink, David.
Don Carlo's here. Someone make me an old-fashioned. It's like a tenant super, and someone make me an old-fashioned.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when a mate of mine was at the ship, this pub in Wandsworth, which is famously raucous on a Sunday.
Southwest London.
Southwest London, sure. And
people can work that out for themselves, Mark. I don't think the geographical location.
You've just got to be aware of those who don't live in London.
Fuck them.
He was.
Get on Google and have a look. Carry on, Vish.
It's quite close to where I live, actually. So you should be aware of it. You've all done the Marcus.
Landmark, yeah.
So you're in the ship at Wandsworth on a Sunday with you and Rolf Harris.
The Marcus Speller Open Tour bus has gone past.
He wouldn't be allowed in.
Not now.
But my mate was there. You know, good-looking guy, single at the time. You know, feeling very good about himself. And
it wasn't me, by the way.
At around like 4 p.m, the All Blacks walk in.
Hey!
And he went, I might as well go home.
Right.
Might as well go home.
Well, because best case scenario, you're going to get... You're going to go home on your own. Worst case scenario, you're going to get filled in, presumably.
Or a wedgie. You get a wedgie.
You get a wedgie.
They'd wedgie all the good-looking guys in the pub and go, right.
Straight away.
Yeah.
First thing, that's what they
eliminate
do.
the competition.
That's where the hacker came from.
Is this a scrum? No, it's not.
That's exactly what's happened there with Moyes. I think that there's interestingly enough, I get the connotations. I get the fact that he managed them for a long time and that he did well, and he left for not negative reasons, right? Which is quite rare for a manager at the top level,
Yes.
I think, these days. But there's actually nothing to suggest that his first stint at Everton is that relevant to what's happening now.
I know what you mean by that.
The ownership's different.
Yeah.
The stadium's soon to be different. All the players are different. It really just is, the echoes of what came before. And people have been at great pains to point out that actually it's not just the fact that Everton are different. In the last 11, 12 years, David Moyes is actually quite different.
Yep.
Not as far as he was, manages a slightly different way. So I don't think beyond the actual memory of fans, which of course is important, it might give them a little bit more leeway perhaps if things don't start off brilliantly. In terms of the practical application of the job itself, I don't think it's that relevant. And I'd also add what I said last week in a slightly different context when we were talking about Moyes, is that he's not a firefighter relegation type manager. He can be that, but he's much more than that. And he's also said in the past, I don't want a job that involves me doing that.
You said that last month.
Yeah, and I guess Everton is possibly the exception because of his history with
It is. It is the only exception.
Yeah, he's delivered. Yeah, I know the football was pretty shit, and I know West Ham fans got pissed off, and I was broadly sympathetic with them then, and I am now because they're the fans and they get to choose what they want as much as they can. But you can't really say to the bad job at West Ham.
Well, you're semi-final of a Europa League.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously won the Europa Conference League.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Declan Rice, now, I don't know if West Ham fans will put into much credence about what Rice may say about the club, but he said, he's one of the greatest managers, or he may even said the greatest manager in this club's history. No, I think that's a big shout, but the fact is, he is up there because of that trophy win. He will be, I think, in time spoken about in very with fairly fond memory. I think a little bit of time needs to pass because of the style of play, as you say. But the fact is, going deep in Europe's second biggest cup competition and winning their third biggest cup competition, these are no mean feats at all, especially for a club that has been up and down as well. I think people often would talk about West Ham and Everton in this sort of similar bracket, wouldn't they? When you're talking about a player who's maybe come up with a promoted side and go, "Ooh, he's not good enough for tops." Where would he go? Maybe a West Ham or an Everton.
I think they're quite similar.
Yeah, and people would talk about a West Ham or an Everton. Those clubs who it can be very up and down. They're battling against relegation way more than they would like, not pushing on as much as they would like, but they've had a little bit of taste of the biscuit and so on. And so I think that the job Moyes has done at West Ham recently, in terms of the stability and so on. I mean, look, it was better under Moyes than it was this season under Lopetegui. Hence, Lopetegui's lost his job. That didn't work. We'll see now what Potter does. Moyes was not going to kick them on and play the type of football they wanted to see down there. And I don't think Moyes is going to kick Everton on in the way that they would have wanted in recent years. Look at the appointments. We mentioned Martinez, Ronald Koeman, for crying out loud, Marcus Silva, Carlo Ancelotti. These are all...
Benitez in there.
Benitez as well. Yeah, fine. But these are all, with this sort of weird exception to Benitez, these are all big, exciting appointments.
Benitez is a Champions League winning manager.
Yeah, fine.
The football isn't great, but I mean, he is worth being listed as a good manager.
All right, well, we'll chuck him back in then. You've got 5 managers there who are all exciting appointments, and most, if not all, had money to spend. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that, James Rodriguez turned out. Now, I know Rodriguez, since Real Madrid, has been very bitty and so on. But the fact is that
I don't imagine David Moyes will be trying to sign James Rodriguez.
No, sure. He is available. He's just left, is it Rayo Vallecano by mutual consent? But the fact is, you can see what they were trying to do and that they've tried to do in this last kind of 5, 6, 7 years or whatever it's been. And it just has not happened. And the frustration with those fans is evident to see, and it's very, very understandable. As I say, it's been a shite show the last few years, certainly. And then you get Frank Lampard, who just about keeps them up. Sean Dyche, who, considering the circumstances, did all right, but it's not going to be pretty, and you're not going to get really above sort of 14th, 15th or whatever in the table. I understand there was a points deduction. So what do they then do now? They're in the doldrums. The relegation is a distinct possibility this season. As I say, you've got the new stadium coming, blah, blah, blah. They turn to David Moyes, and he's up for it. And I think, in terms of an 18-month appointment, potentially, I think that's a decent appointment. I think the thought of Moyes going 4, 5, 6 years at Everton, I think, is very unlikely, and I don't think that's probably what a lot of them would.
It's down to the ownership anyway.
Of course it is, but I don't think a lot of the fans would probably relish that. I think some will feel like, oh my goodness, we've gone back, and others will go, this should bring stability, this should stave off relegation, and then we can, new season in the new stadium, kind of re-establish ourselves maybe as sort of mid-table or whatever, and then try and kick on with new owners and so on. They've seen it before, it's failed. But if I was an Everton fan, I would probably feel a little bit reassured Moyes is going. But I understand not the number of them won't be.
Vish,
but what do they do though, Vish? Where do they turn?
Yeah, and also, what do you make of the timing of it? Because the timing of it is like, coming
January transfer window they've got. I think that's what
But the point is that
terrible run of form.
Dyche was out of contract in the summer anyway.
Yeah, but this is a terrible run of form, and you've got the January transfer window. And
but also the noises Dyche was making, like over the last month or so.
I think so, yeah.
Right down to they should look for a new manager in the summer.
Indeed. He was done.
Evidently, like he'd lost whatever power he had over the players. And I don't necessarily mean that there was a mutiny per se, but they certainly weren't responding to his methods anymore. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to echo a few things that Luke said there. David Moyes is a different manager now, and a lot of that is because he was chewed up and spat out by the game or the sport outside of Everton, really. Obviously first with Manchester United, but with his other stints basically twice by West Ham, let's be fair. But I also think that through that he's been able to change certain methods. It certainly sounds like in the way that he's picked backroom staff in the past, there was this thought that he'd only pick yes men, and that didn't necessarily go well for him, but he seems to be more in touch with the modern player, which is a crucial part of management now, whichever way you split it. I also think, given where Everton are now, they've lost that that footing in let's say mid-table. Even if without the points deduction last year, that's where they probably would have finished, because there's so much happening behind. There was so much more happening behind the scenes that it required someone who. Basically what it needs now is a manager who's used to things going on at the club that you can't necessarily control and still being able to put your head down and do your job. Yeah. And David Moyes did that at West Ham. I think another interesting strand to it is with the move to a new stadium, Moyes dealt with that transition at West Ham to a point. He was, I think it was about 2021 where West Ham decided to go on this essentially refurb of the London Stadium by sorting out the stands, really. It's still not a great place to watch football, but they improved it in certain areas because they wanted to improve the atmosphere. Moyes was a pretty big part of that because he was, obviously the away fans are still a million miles away, but he basically wanted to make it feel more like a football stadium. Obviously the difference here is, Bramley Moore Dock is a purpose-built football stadium, so it won't have the same issues as the Olympic Stadium. Yep. But there's an element of seeing a new order, and yes, you might be doing it with a bloke who was there, more than a decade ago, but he's a different kind of manager there, invariably just a different kind of person. And I think it's a pretty smart move, especially if there's understanding on both sides from the freaking group and David Moyes that it's only for 18 months, 2 years, because we've seen it with Everton that they'll get to a certain point, and because the fan base is there and, I suppose the club have these ambitions, that they start looking further ahead. I don't think a fan base or an ownership group should be slated for doing that. That is the nature of the beast. But there does need to be a bit more openness, and I don't think Everton have been particularly open with managers in the past about what they want from them, which is why they've got big names, but also someone like Frank Lampard comes in and he's like, well, what do you want? And has to talk so early in the season as Dyche did this year about, well, we're going to struggle this year. No one wants to really hear that, but it comes from, I suppose, a lack of clarity on what you set out to achieve as a club. Are we going to hear the famous Moyes line again when he was Sunderland manager? It can't get any better than this. It just can't. Which would be damning. I mean, I think one of the other
he was right about Sunderland, to be fair.
Well, he was. I think also it's not a huge leap in terms of styles of football from Dyche to Moyes. That's no slight on Moyes, or Dyche for that matter. But it's not, again. If it was Dyche to Ancelotti, it'd be rather different or something like that. So I think that I think the players there, Moyes is fairly pragmatic at times, and I think he'll need to be with the squad that he has.
I think he's also a bit more. He's a bit looser than Dyche with the forward players.
Yeah.
Obviously, he needs to get to a point where he trusts them.
Yeah.
I remember early on in Pablo Fornal's career where he clearly just wanted it. Basically, just turned him into a shuttle runner.
Yeah.
And then as it came on, he was like, "I can trust you with the ball, do a bit more with the ball."
There's that, and also I think you talked about or asked about the timing of it. If you look at the sides around them, I don't think Palace are going to go down. They've got a little bit of a cushion. They're perhaps nervy looking over their shoulders, 5 points above the drop zone, but they're not going to go down, I don't think. West Ham are not going to go down, especially now Potter's there. Manchester United, lol. They're not going to go down. But below Everton, Wolves have they've twisted, haven't they? They've got a new manager in who already seems to have improved them, so that's something to think about.
So the only teams
Ipswich,
there,
are building momentum, and Leicester with Van Nistelrooy, they've twisted as well.
Yeah,
well, and Southampton have as well. But I think we're all agreed that their ambition this season is to not finish with fewer than 11 points with Derby County's record. So I think Everton, you look around there, you really are relying on Jordan Pickford to make as many clean sheets as possible, get draws here and there, and that should maybe be enough. And that seemed to be where it was going with Dyche. That is not a plan, because all it takes is Ipswich Town to suddenly feel like, hang on a minute, we've grasped this, and McKenna is capable of doing that. I've talked glowingly about Delap in recent podcasts. It's still a huge ask for Ipswich, but a little bit of momentum, and you win the odd game here and there, and suddenly you're away. So I think Everton had to act, really, and again, where else do you turn? To me, Moyes was really, in some ways, the prime candidate. Really,
you take away his previous history with Everton, and that's absolutely spot on. I feel like it's only the fact that they're quote unquote going back.
Yes,
that there is a bit of tentativeness in I suppose saying outright that this is a sound appointment.
But as Luke said, so much time has happened since then, and you've both said he's a different manager, but also as well, winning the Conference League. You see a guy who's actually his greatest achievement in football, you would argue, is that medal that he won, and it's come quite late in his career, which is encouraging, I suppose.
I also think that they're probably a better team in terms of the players they've got and what they've shown.
I would agree with that.
And I think a large part of that is because, you look at Sean Dyche's record as a manager. He manages at Burnley for 10 years, does an amazing job, feels like a brilliant fit, delivers what he delivers. But that's really the only thing he's done as a manager. And he comes in at Everton, it's not been great. There's probably a lot of different reasons for that. And maybe some people feel like he's done as best as he can do in that situation. The real reason that there's a proper kind of maelstrom of shit happening at Everton all the time is because of the ownership, right? Because they go from real stability with Bill Kenwright, who perhaps, although he loves the club, feels like he probably can't financially keep doing this, so he has to find a buyer. He finds a buyer in the shape of Mashiri, who is clearly absolutely clueless and has thrown almost like the best part of £1 billion at nothing, really, at nothing, with the exception of the stadium, which will be delivered, and that could well be treat his legacy a little bit more kindly. And now they've got this new ownership, which haven't showered themselves in glory when they've owned clubs elsewhere. So a lot of this is unknown. And I think the key point that's been said today is from Vish, where he says, the managers now, a lot of managers need to know just to get their head down, get on with the stuff on the pitch, and deal with really the hand they're dealt. No one knows what hand they're going to be dealt by the Friedkin group, because the Friedkin group brought back a favourite or brought in a favourite at Roma and then binned him off for no real reason. And there was a mutiny about it. The parallels are probably, David Moyes...
Maybe they've learned. maybe they've learned a lesson there.
David Moyes perhaps not quite the player Daniele De Rossi was, but I mean, he's still a favourite there. He's still someone they like, and... he could be treated pretty shabbily. We just don't know. So the answer to this is just that, Moyes has got the credentials to do it, and he's done well in his career elsewhere. And I think he's actually quite underrated because of his style and because of the way he's quite abrasive in interviews and stuff like that as well. But we just don't know how long he's going to be there, because we don't know what the Friedkin group are thinking. And perhaps to some extent, they don't know what they're thinking either.
If we wanted the Friedkin group to go full Friedkin, they wouldn't have hired Moyes first. If you're talking about that Roma example, Daniele De Rossi came in and then Ranieri.
Yeah.
They'd have gone Rooney. Then Moyes. That's what they would have done.
I'd love to see Rooney as part of the setup.
Part of the setup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
you see, though,
Not the
according
main
to,
part.
one tabloid has gone with the headline, Wayne Rooney lands new role following Plymouth Axe. And you're thinking, already?
Yeah.
With Man United legend to run coaching camp in Dubai.
Train with Wayne, it's called.
Train with...
They started with the title and they've worked back from there, haven't they?
Yeah.
Like, what Wayne can we get?
Would you be tempted to call this a lovely old job? Wayne will make his debut at the Jumeirah Beach Hotel, Dubai, this February half term, 17th to the 21st of February. And of course, you can train with Wayne. What a great footballing icon. The price for a family of four for that is listed between £7,500 and £8,650. So I'd imagine he'll do okay out of that.
$7,500 to have Wayne wheezing around, sunburnt, telling your kid to strike through the ball with the laces.
Yeah. But do you know what, though? It'll just be full of the dads going, so what were you thinking when you volleyed that one in
I
against
don't think the dads are going to
Yeah.
get much FaceTime with him.
Oh, dear. So, I don't know. It would be great if Wayne could be involved in the setup at all, but that remains to be seen. Well, I think it's going to go okay with
Yeah.
Moyes at Everton. Is that a fair prediction?
I mean, that's not really a great broadcaster's point, is it? You know, with one hand it might do this and one hand it might do this. Say what you think.
I think he will ensure that they will stay up this season, and I think next season he will establish them or re-establish them as a mid-table side.
I think you're probably right. I think that's about right. Depending on what happens, depending on what the setup is at the moment, depending on what the kind of morale they're in, depending on what players he can bring in, if any. And I just think there's always a danger, as I said last week, about coming in at this stage of the season. You're in there for a reason. Like Everton haven't really quite been a shit show, but like, for example, they can't score. They just cannot score goals.
Yeah. So
So that's a really big challenge. That puts your defence under such pressure.
Yes, it
Because if
does.
you know you're going to score a maximum of one goal, and given that Everton have rubbed along in the Premier League season at below that, you know as a defensive player, if you concede a goal, you're basically fucked. So there's a lot of pressure in there. So I don't think there's necessarily a link in any way, shape or form between the fact that he used to be the manager. Like I say, he might get a few extra games, patience from the fans, who, by the way, are notoriously impatient anyway. I mean, Everton's a bear pit.
And Moyes knows that more than anybody.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I think he probably. I didn't think they were going to get relegated anyway. So I think they will stay up. But next season, who cares?
Well, I think it'll be more comfortable this season now. Moyes is in there, and I think some Everton fans will bite your hand off that. Others will say,
Same, more of the same. Yeah.
more of the same. All right, coming up after this. Oh, Andy Carroll scores again. Welcome back to the Football Ramble, everybody. Tonight, Nottingham Forest host Liverpool. It's third against first.
It's great that this is now a
Premier League.
massive game in the Premier League again.
Liverpool will go 9 points clear at the top with a win. Nottingham Forest will jump above Arsenal into second if they avoid losing. And Forest, of course, are 6 points behind Liverpool, and Liverpool have a game in hand. If they win this,
Imagine.
And give them the second bloodiest nose of the season.
yes.
Another second bloody
If
nose.
Forest win this, Vish, is it safe to say that they're on
Say
the
it.
verge?
Yes. Yes.
If they win it,
Yes.
and Liverpool then don't win some games, and Forest continue to win.
You just got to
Yes.
stay in touch. I'll tell you what, you've got to stay in touch because come on the back end of the season,
Yes.
Liverpool going to have to answer some questions about the priorities.
Well, they are
And they're going to have some big games. They're going to be playing a lot more football than Forest are.
big games.
I'll tell you what, it's interesting. It's interesting.
It's very
And the fact that this is now being tabled and presented as a really big game in the Premier League again. It's great for those people of our age because Forest used to be a massive team.
Well, it is great, and also as well that Forest, if they were to beat Liverpool, I could see Nuno in the back end of the season doing a Ranieri at Leicester. Right, 1-0. Let's just do it.
That'd be brilliant.
Because even though that would give Arsenal a helping hand, I don't trust them.
No, I don't either.
I can already see Chris Wood just getting Van Dijk in a headlock, rubbing his little head.
Giving him a little
Exactly.
noogie.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's right. I think the reason that we're absent a title race this season is not because Liverpool won't slip up. I still think there's some questions to be answered about them, as I've said. But you don't trust Arsenal to do it.
Yeah.
And Chelsea aren't going to do it. And, Man City is gone for them now, really. Even if Man City go on one of their really big runs that they have done in recent seasons, they've still got 12 points and a game to make up. It's very tough.
The one actually is, if they hadn't have had such a sticky start of the season, Newcastle would have been in the mix. But I think we're getting a bit fanciful there.
Well, the other thing is, as soon as Chelsea were talked about as potential,
they dropped
off.
Yeah, exactly.
But when we saw Forest beat Liverpool at Anfield at the start of the season, we just immediately write it off as an anomaly, don't you? Great performance,
I think we're still holding on to the fact that Nuno was on the verge of being sacked.
And now it doesn't seem like a coincidence, doesn't seem like a anomaly at all. It feels like part of the overall oeuvre of what they're doing. So the fact that they're going to do it at home against Liverpool in what will be an amazing atmosphere, it could be a really, really interesting game. In fact, I think it will be.
Yeah, and the style of football that Forest play, we talked about this in Ramble Reacts when Forest beat Wolves 3-0. And that style of football Nuno likes to play, it's very counter-attacking with the players they've got. You can see that. Gibbs White's great, Langer and Hudson-Odoi and so on. We talked about them doing a very professional job. You can see that those types of games, he seems to have a plan for this. And no one's really talking too much about the title other than Liverpool, because Liverpool have been so good. But if they can get a result tonight, the pressure on them will increase. But again, with Nuno being, it always comes across as quite a calm head and so on. Look at the goals they've scored this season in the league, 29.
Well, the lowest scorers in the top half.
You have to go all the way down to poor old Manchester United in 13th to find the side who have scored the fewest next to them.
It's all about everyone knowing their jobs, keeping things tight, shape's good.
Yeah,
Wolves
have scored more goals than them.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Forest obviously have to keep Liverpool out. They have to. But the good news for them is that really, who are Liverpool going to play? They're going to play Diaz probably, and they're going to play Salah obviously. Outside of those two. Does anyone score like goals consistently for Liverpool? It's a lot of Salah, isn't it?
Yeah. If you see if Jota comes in, obviously scored against. The mighty Accrington. Because
I understand there's availability issues. We've only got 4 league goals this season, Jota.
Well, yeah. I think, but again, though, talking about that style of play Forest are well drilled at, that's what we'll see tonight.
It will be, and it'll be because if you look at the raw numbers, I know there's more to it than that, but Salah scored the same amount of league goals as Diaz, Gakpo and Jota put together, who are the next best 3.
Yeah.
You can't rely on a Darwin Núñez, for example. You can't rely on a Szoboszlai to score goals. So it's doable for them. They've got to keep Salah quiet, which is very, very difficult. Salah's numbers are just absolutely ridiculous. He's got 31 goals or assists in 19 games. It's just stupid. So that's obviously a big ask. But if you look at how it'll all line up, defensively, Forest have been good. Hudson-Odoi can ask questions of Alexander-Arnold for sure. Who will probably play right back. So it'll be interesting.
It will be, and Liverpool, of course, rested some key players for that cup tie at home to.
And Forest had a pretty easy day at the office. They beat Luton fairly easily at home. So I think it comes down to who manages the occasion, right? And Forest are definitely capable. And if you're not a Liverpool fan, you should be wanting Forest to win this game because you want it to be a bit more interesting.
Oh, well, of course.
If Liverpool pull away, and Arsenal obviously play tomorrow night against Spurs.
Well, even if Arsenal win that, the points is still a huge tally. That Liverpool have over them. So indeed. 16-year-old Rio Ungamoa made his Liverpool debut, becoming the youngest ever player to start a game for Liverpool. What a flipping record that is.
It's Liverpool, by the way. It's not just a...
Yes, exactly, yeah.
I know we often hear, he's the youngest ever player to do this, and sometimes you sort of get lost in it. At Liverpool, the players that they've had and produced as well, the young players as well, absolutely incredible.
He looks 16 as well.
He does.
He's probably 16.
Yeah. He was also replaced by Jayden Dance, who came on and scored.
Who's the ripe old age of 18.
Yeah, Jayden Dance is someone who we've seen quite a lot of, isn't it, as a young player for Liverpool. And at some point, his career is probably going to take off, I would have thought, as well.
Federico Chiesa, we saw him playing as well, got his goal. Arne Slot said, if you play for this club, you want to score your first goal, and he did. Let's not get carried away. It's a League Two team, but a good step.
Yeah, I like the thing
strong and steady leadership.
The thing with Chiesa is I love watching him as a player because he's always so positive and he always wants to make things happen. And I think sometimes with the way football is so systemic these days, if you're a wide forward, it's quite easy to just recycle the ball, turn inside, play it back, pick your moments, not really attack as much as you should. And I think from what I've seen, Federico Chiesa never really does that. He always tries to make things happen. That said, it's difficult to think of a long old list of players, particularly in recent years, who've come from Serie A as Italian players and done really well. And he's had a difficult start. He's not a young player anymore either. He's also obviously going to be in that situation where, because it's Liverpool when they're top of the league and top of the Champions League, if you're not right at it all the time, you're just not going to play.
Yeah.
And so it makes it hard for him to settle in, because he's played such a small amount of minutes in the Premier League this season that it's really hard for him to make an impact. So I hope that kick-starts him, because I like him as a player. But and it was a nice goal, by the way. He took his goal really well. Yeah, fine, it's against poor opposition, but it's still a really nice goal. And it was a kind of trademark goal for him as well. So maybe that'll give him a bit of confidence. But he's clearly someone who needs a run in the team. And is he going to get that at Liverpool? Not really sure.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem for him. Right, before we go for another break, I want to talk about former Liverpool striker Andy Carroll briefly. Still enjoying himself in France. You can still find him there. He scored a lovely chest and volley for Bordeaux at the weekend.
He did. That makes it sound better than it actually was. It was a power chest way too heavy, which then he had to really stretch every single inch of his long leg and kind of scuff volley into the corner.
Well, that's one way of describing it. One way is a crucial goal in a 2-1 win. They move up to third in the table. And for those of you who are unaware, Bordeaux, I know they were recently, not that long ago.
Third in the table, the French fourth tier.
In the Champions League. They've fallen on tough times, which is why Andy Carroll's banging them in the French fourth tier. Yeah. Hopefully they can come back up, though. A fine club they once were. Right, coming up after this, Andreas Pereira proves that he really does love Fulham. Tonight at West Ham United, they face Fulham. It's Graham Potter's first home game in charge as West Ham manager. Of course, his first game was at Villa Park. They lost 2-1 in the Cup.
They're very hard done by the way.
Well, I thought there was a push.
It's also a terrible decision to give Aston Villa a corner, which wasn't a corner.
Yeah, VAR couldn't help them out there.
No,
but it would have done perhaps with was it Onana's goal? Well, anyway, they've got a chance now to really get going under Potter against Fulham in the league. And Potter will have had a few more days with the players, of course, not an enormous amount of time. He'd only taken one training session before the Aston Villa match. I wonder how long it's going to take Potter to get over his ideas and his thoughts and philosophies and all that kind of stuff with the players. We know that he's a very well thought out coach.
Oh, you mean put across? I thought you meant like, come on, leave that nonsense aside. 4-4-2, lump it. Yeah. What are you worried about?
Well, maybe he will do for this game.
We've had enough of experts. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I was thinking, but I didn't say it. But Potter, we know that he does have a bit of pragmatism. I think some people look at him as if he's perhaps because of his surname, but also he's an English coach who. No, but you know what I mean.
And that scar he's got on his head.
Yeah,
exactly.
Why is that bald bloke always chasing you?
I think that because he's not a stereotypical type of British manager, and he managed abroad and he's come back now and so on, people trying to pin him down a bit. His work at Brighton is really what one would look at and think, okay, that was when he was really got to grips with his team and his squad, and at the club at Chelsea it was a bit of a madhouse. So what are you expecting from West Ham? Do you think this? I think long term it could go well with Potter. It doesn't necessarily mean to say the short term has to be bad.
Well, you say that, but I look at the short term as what he can do with the players available to him. And there is a lot of talent in that West Ham squad, not least because we touched on it before at the start of the show. When they moved on from Moyes, they wanted a different style of play. They spend a lot of money on bringing players in. They brought in Lopetegui for that reason. They've since departed ways with Lopetegui. And there's almost a smartness in getting him in because he's a manager with a lot of ideas who is just going to work with what they've got. They kind of don't really need to go out and buy anyone. They could get Potter in and see, like, look, there's a lot of, like, there are quite a few good footballers here in the squad. What do you make of that? And then let's have a conversation in the summer, say, of like where you want to improve and stuff like that. I'm fascinated to see what he does with this team, particularly if you think of someone like Paqueta, who's kind of fallen off a cliff. He's had various different off-field issues. There was the Man City interest that seems to have got him this way and that. He looks to me exactly the kind of player that Potter could have at his disposal and think, right, you're going to do this. He's a very clearly defined role, which basically allows you to do all the things you enjoy doing on a football pitch. And similar to a lot of their wide players as well. Even someone like Edson Alvarez, who probably had to do a little bit too much further forward, will have a clearer idea of what he needs to do in, say, a midfield three. Excited for all that. I think ultimately, to talk about Potter exclusively, I was a little surprised that he took this job, in part because of actually the squad. I'm kind of going back on what I said here a little bit, but it's felt like a bit of a mess. And it felt like he's been biding his time. We never really know the situation of like compensation when managers leave a club like Chelsea.
I think he's still being paid until he takes a new job, I think. Right,
so with that, I thought with that comfort, it felt like he was really kind of waiting for the ideal job, and it might have actually just got to the point where like actually that job doesn't exist. So because this is how football works.
Yeah, that's possible. But the reason I would be kind of a little bit worried is because when I think of Potter as a coach, I think of him being really wanting to work with players who've got a really high level of football intelligence, who can play different roles, and who are capable of changing formation, changing system. But the reason Guardiola loves Potter so much, right, is because he'll say stuff. He's the ultimate football nerd, really, isn't he? And he'll say stuff like, I find playing against Graham Potter teams really interesting because it's like a proper challenge. They'll start off one way, then they'll change.
It's a very fluid system.
Everyone seems to know what they're doing. It's quite fluid. And that, to me, says, A, you need intelligent players. So he's obviously going to recruit players who are a type of profile who can accommodate that. 2, though, you need a lot of work on the training ground. And you're not going to get any of that now. Yeah. And so it may well be that, as Vish has alluded to, he settles on something as a style that he thinks can work with this group of players he's got. They kind of limp through the rest of the season, get to where they need to get to, i.e. stay in the Premier League, which they probably will anyway. And just because there's a lot of absolute dreck below them. And then the work starts in earnest in the summer, and he'll need to be backed and he'll need to be looked after. There's no way that he was realistically going to be able to do that at Chelsea because it's too many players coming in all the time. I wonder whether the top players were having him, really knew enough about him or rated him, because it's a massive step up. And there's an element with his career. It's not just Brighton, it's Swansea, it's Ostersund's. He comes in under the radar. With the greatest of respect, even at a club like Brighton, certainly at a club like Swansea, it doesn't really make a ripple in the wider football news that Graham Potter's taken the job. It will at West Ham. He's got a reputation now. People are looking at him and going, right, what's next? We thought you were a really brilliant, exciting coach. Your last job was a failure. Might not be your fault, but you're a part of it. So what are you going to do now? And I just see this job as it's a load of ideas to take on board on behalf of these players. And some of them will absolutely love it, and some of them just won't be suited to it. I just think you draw a line from Moyes to Lopetegui to Potter. It's just a bit confused. And who knows what's going to happen is what I would say.
I think you're probably right. I would go along that with this season, just kind of steady the ship and make sure nothing stupid happens, and the work starts in the summer. We may well see a bit of drip feeding the ideas as they go in the coming months, if indeed that is possible. One thing he's going to have to address, though, is the front line. Fulkrug ruled out for 3 months with a hamstring injury. Obviously, Michael Antonio is recovering, but we're all aware of what's happened there. Jared Bowen's out for a little bit of time. The criticism of Potter at Brighton was that they were a little bit blunt when they got to the final third. Great at the back, and fluid in midfield and all that kind of stuff. So that is something that he's really going to have to look at with this West Ham United side, because there are challenges to be had there.
I mean, you kind of wonder if he would, given Fulkrug and Antonio out, you wonder whether he could play kind of Bowen like a false 9 type position, which kind of suits the way he likes to manage and be a bit creative. But then obviously Bowen's out for ages as well, so it's basically coming down to the absolute dregs, which is Danny Ings. Danny Ings has to play up front. Danny,
easy.
Your time to shine.
Yeah,
Danny Ings up front, flicking them on for Somerville running in.
He's also injured.
Everyone's done.
Yeah, everyone's injured.
I'm still not over that Danny Ings equaliser for West Ham earlier in the season at Craven Cottage. But I mean, Fulham absolutely bossed West Ham in that 1-1 draw at Craven Cottage earlier in the season. We have a new manager in West Ham, though, and I think if you're Marco Silva of Fulham, you're thinking, right, lads, come on, these lot can be got at. I'd have Fulham as favourites for the game, just looking at the league table, even though West Ham are at home. And I think Fulham, they know what they're about. The problem for Fulham is, despite a great victory at Stamford Bridge, a point at Anfield, drawing at home at Arsenal, they draw at home to Southampton, they draw at home to Ipswich.
Saying that, yeah,
and that's the thing. But
they look past the smaller games for them,
and it certainly appears that way. But I think away to West Ham, this is a big game. They know that West Ham are a huge club. It's a big old stadium to go to, and I think I would fancy Fulham to do it tonight. not least because Andres Pereira is seemingly happier. There's been a little bit of a...
This was interesting.
A bit of a dark cloud over him this season with Silva. He's definitely had interest, Andres Pereira. Clubs have been interested in him, but he's not gone anywhere. The January transfer window is open. I mean, Pereira is 29. He's really reinvented himself at Fulham. And if you look at him, because they signed him from Manchester United, for crying out loud. Manchester United signed him in 2014. But in that time, on loan to Granada, on loan to Valencia, on loan to Lazio, and even on loan to Flamengo. He didn't really play that much at all. He's found a home at Fulham and he's done very well there.
They love him there, don't they?
Yeah, and great engine, lovely technique, can hit a dead ball, an eye for a goal and assist, etc., etc. But he's 29 now, and I wonder if Pereira's thinking, you know what? I came over to England to play for Manchester United. Didn't play that much there. Re-established himself at Fulham, as I say. He's a proper Premier League player now. Is he thinking, is there interest? I wonder, has his head been turned a little bit? There's been a slight dynamic change in Fulham's midfield this season with Palhinha going and Pereira playing slightly deeper and so on, and Smith Rowe coming in and Alex Iwobi being one of the best midfielders in the Premier League for my money this season. He's been fantastic. So there's a lot going on there. But Pereira still has a part to play for Fulham. Absolutely. Still a crucial player, I think. And we recently saw him pictured wearing a T-shirt with MILF on the front. And before anybody thinks that's a bit crude, underneath the acronym, it read, "Man, I love Fulham." Come on, Vish, what are you saying to that?
It's nonsense, but
I think it sends a message.
Oh, you're back at Man United, dear.
This is riffing on the Dill thing, isn't it? From
Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
I don't think Andres Pereira looked up in the Cottage Pavilion, saw Mick Jagger wearing a Dilf cap and thought, how do I respond to that?
I don't think he went to Go Pig or whatever that website is where you can make your own shirt.
No, there's a big meme culture for people wearing T-shirts with MILF on it on the back. It says, "Man, I love forklifts." There's like a forklift truck on the back.
Right.
I think it might be a kind of takeoff of that.
Right.
So if you want meme culture, come to me, mate.
Yeah.
But I find the Pereira thing interesting. To me, that was like a statement of him saying, I want to be here.
Yeah.
Because although he's had interest from Brazil, people listening might not be all that aware of this. I don't think he's ever actually lived in Brazil, has he?
No,
he grew up in Belgium, and he represented Belgium under 18 level or something.
Then he went 17. Yeah.
And then he went to go and play for Brazil, but he's not actually ever, other than that loan spell he had, he's never actually really lived there. So I think he of course he is Brazilian. He considers himself a Brazilian, and that's obviously fine by me, none of my business. But he is a European kid, really.
Yeah.
So perhaps doesn't want to make a big move like that, uproot everyone at that stage of his career and go all the way over to South America. I know other clubs have been interested as well, but I remember seeing it might have even been his first home game for Fulham against Liverpool when they drew 2-2.
That's right.
Opening day of the season. He was amazing, and instantly the fans took to him because he's not only got a bit about him where he can do something special, he works so hard as well.
I think the work rate, the engine he has. And
I just think Fulham, in the situation they're in, if you chart back over the last few seasons, if you lose Mitrovic and Palhinha and Pereira, it not only makes what they are achieving even more remarkable, and Silva doing such a good job in improving these different players, as you've alluded to, but it's also just a bit of a shame.
It's a bit of a shame, although to be honest with you, Fulham are in such a good position right now that actually if they lost Pereira, they're more set up for that than they've ever been. And Pereira,
Lukic has been a bit of a revelation.
Lukic has been great. Sander Berg has come in and he's done really well too. And as I say, Iwobi has been magnificent this season, and you've got other players in there too. I don't want to bore everybody and name them all. But with Pereira, he is now a fairly high-profile player. What does he want to do? He knows there's interest. The club know there's interest, but Fulham also, as well, are pretty well run when it comes to transfers. They don't get pushed around by the big teams. I mean, look at Palhinha. João Palhinha had the Bayern Munich kit in his hand. He was in Munich, he was holding it up, and they said, if we can't find a replacement, mate, you enjoy the photograph, but you're coming back. And he did. And they also held out for a lot of money for Alexander Mitrovic, despite Mitrovic going on strike, for crying out loud. So with Pereira, it's like, unless the offer is particularly good for us, then you're not going to go anywhere. And Pereira is also, he's played good football at Fulham, as I say, has a role to still play there. What do you want to do at the age of 29? Do you think, I've got the big move in me left, I can still play at maybe a higher level than this, whether it's in this country or abroad? But the other thing is, I think it would be a shame if he went.
But the other thing is that he might run his contract down, I guess, because he's got another year and a half. That's it.
Yeah, but how old is he going to be then?
We'll be a year and a half older, Marcus.
That won't we all?
Yes, we will.
You know, exactly. I have nipples too, Luke. Could you milk me?
I will do on the Patreon.
$5 a month.
$5 a nipple.
Or $2.50.
So in Barclays, that's $15.
Whee! So I think he's going to score the winning goal against West Ham tonight. There you go.
There you go.
What's your prediction, tough guy?
It's a really difficult one to call. I think
Get him a
West Ham,
slipstream.
I think West Ham will win.
Oh.
Yeah.
Vish, you've got the deciding vote.
Same, Danny Ings winner.
Oh, there we go. You
Piss
asked for it. Oi,
Oi.
you grab the rose. Don't complain. You get the thorns.
Oh, so we'll see out there, won't we? We'll see out there. Elsewhere tonight, Man City travel to Brentford.
Which is by the way, which is a really interesting one.
Yeah.
Because Man City have found a little bit of form. But they're going to a place that statistically is one of the hardest places to go in the Premier League, and Brentford are hurting.
They are hurting
big time.
Yes.
And if you are, you Anvisa or Brian Mbeumo, and you don't start a game where you get knocked out the cup, and Man City are coming to town, you want a piece of that action big time.
You do want a piece of that action, absolutely. Did you see Pep Guardiola recently was filmed giving a motivational speech?
That's so
very,
odd.
and that's
It's
very,
so odd.
That's very kind to word it like that.
Yeah.
A motivational speech to a group of kids that had asked for an autograph.
Some of them were kids. Some of them were kids.
Yeah, I mean, stuff that he said involved him basically telling them, you should go to school. What are your hopes and dreams? What you do? In other words, basically, like, why are you here asking me for an autograph? Come on, you're better than this. Go out and do your own thing. And they're a bit like. You can see them looking around going, we're just a fan of the club.
I think he has a bit of a point with a couple of people he was talking to.
I've been to Man City's training ground before, and all day were kids of school age with their dads, not in school.
It's not even the kids. It's
go to school.
Yeah, but it's the older ones who had loads of different things for him to sign that were clearly going to be sold, and I think he handled that in an incredibly Pep Guardiola way. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I did see his point.
So he's a bit like Nigel Slater, isn't he? So Nigel Slater's a great chef, and when you're presenting a recipe to the camera, it kind of works. But when he starts talking to other people, it falls down.
Yes,
Pep's in his flow state in the dugout or on the training ground or in the dressing room. When you get him out and start having him talking to normals, it falls to pieces.
Yeah.
It's like he's talking a different language. It's like he's an alien species.
In his flow state.
It was. I think we can all agree it was very enjoyable.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah,
it's incredible. It was the angriest I've seen anyone sign autographs.
Yeah, it was.
What are you doing? Just sod off.
Yeah. Pep with a cigar on with Noel Gallagher, that kind of works because Noel Gallagher's also not really a normal person.
No, that was a message for Noel Gallagher.
Oh, with a cigar on.
Yeah.
But they do hang out, don't they? I think they do.
That's how Noel phrases it.
Yeah.
That'd be great if the camera
Pep
turns and Noel's there.
I mean, to be fair,
do something with your life.
He was saying, let's do a message for Noel.
Yeah, true.
So,
True.
There we are.
Does Noel Gallagher support Man City, by the way?
Possibly. I think he's from Manchester.
Oh, the pundit.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Is Ricky Gervais an atheist?
Is the Pope Catholic? Thanks for listening to the Football Ramble, part of the Acast Creator Network. Luke and I will be back tomorrow alongside Jim and Andy.
Oh, really?
Reacting to tonight's
every
football.
fucking day this week, am I?
What's wrong with that?
I need to start looking at the calendar and not using this outro as a fucking news.
That's what I do, baby. I'm always here. Follow us on X, Blue Sky, TikTok and Instagram at Football Ramble, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, Luke.
The Pope is a Catholic.
Yes.
Yes, confirmed.
It's rather crucial to the role. Thank you, Vidushan.
We should clarify, if you're young, you don't have to go to school.
It's not your choice. The state has made that for you.
Yeah. Do your own research, though.
Yeah, deep state.